Do you have a side hustle, or maybe you're old school and you just say you have a second job? Better yet, you don't have either, but your coworker does and it's pissing you off. Well, on today's episode of Per My Last Email, we dive into the pros and cons of the fabled side hustle and what you might not realize about them. Kayla.
Kyle.
We got to have a better opener than that.
I know, I'm sorry.
We just say our names.
But that's fine.
Yeah, our coach tells us
They might
to
forget
stop.
us.
Our coach tells us
Forget
to
who
stop
we
doing
are
that.
otherwise.
But yapping is our side hustle.
It's true. It's true.
Do you view this as a side hustle?
Okay, I thought I did until I was told otherwise. This is apparently not a side hustle. This podcast is not a side hustle.
Yes.
Do you have a side hustle?
This podcast is company sanctioned.
Yes.
People know we're doing this. And in fact, we're encouraged to do it.
And it's on company time. So therefore, It's actually just part of our job.
What if Morning Brew didn't know we were down here? We just like we redecorated the studio.
That would be bonkers.
We were sneaking off recording a secret podcast. That would be electric.
That would be electric and very fun, and maybe we should try and do that in our spare time.
Okay.
That should be our new side hustle.
So we're talking about side hustles today. Have you had a side hustle in the past?
Thank you so much for asking me that question. Yes, I have. My last true side hustle was probably in 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
When I did dog walking.
Yeah.
So I used Rover, which is an app that basically allows you to book. It's like dog sitting, you can house sit and dog walking. And there were times when me and my now husband would each have an account. And there were times when we'd have 3 to 4 dogs staying at our small West Village apartment.
Honestly, smart move to stack them up.
Oh yeah, we had a ton.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was really fun, but basically we had just moved to New York and we were like,
broke.
Oh no, things are expensive here. And we really liked dogs. We were interested in having one. And so we were like, we might as well get paid to kind of see which breeds we like, hang out. We had some really hard times, but it was really fun for the most part.
You start calculating your drinks and how many dogs you have to walk. You have a martini, you're like, that's 3 dogs. Oh gosh. Here we go.
It's true. New York is very expensive and side hustles are almost required, at least earlier on.
Yeah. You got to grind. So that's your only side hustle, really?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've had anything else that I would consider a side hustle.
Yeah.
Besides, first of all, does side hustle mean you're getting paid for it?
Depends. I don't think you have to get paid, but it has to be something that's you can't be my side hustle is watching Severance. It's that's just an activity you do.
Yeah, me and my friends for the past 4 years have been writing a TV show on the side. The expectation is it's so good that eventually someone's going to pick it up, and then we're going to get paid millions and millions of dollars. So if you back into the present value of that future expected earnings, I would say it's a side hustle.
So Kayla just flexing on us. She did do finance. So I will say the average income earned from a side hustle, according to Bankrate, is $810 per month.
Oh, wow.
And most people, when you stack rank, why do you have a side hustle? It is related to income. So I think you're in the minority there that has a side hustle, if we want to call it that, because it hasn't made money yet. I would be an investor, though. You're in the minority there. Most people are doing it because they want extra money. The top one was discretionary purchases.
Yep.
You want to be able to go out in New York, have a drink, and not, miss rent. So, okay.
Have you had a side hustle?
I have had, I would say, 2 side hustles before. One very significant because I did it for 4 years. It was a podcast in Milwaukee called Bridge the City. I started it in grad school, so I wasn't really pissing off any employer because I worked, but it was a strict 20 hours a week. I had grad school, which they expect you to do whatever outside of class. But we did make money. We had a Patreon, so I don't even know how much we made, but it was not a lot, but it was something. And I did that. We published 1 episode a week for 4 years. Wow. So that was pretty significant. And I kept that job when I then got a full-time job at Marquette producing a podcast. So I was producing 2 podcasts. One, we had a team, the Bridge of City, we had a team, and I didn't really do that much at that point. But it was, maybe a competitor, but not really. There's a lot of podcasts. This is the best one. The other side hustle I had very briefly while I also was employed at Marquette is I went through a startup accelerator. We incorporated a company. We went through a startup accelerator for 8 weeks. We were fundraising at some point. So we were that I was putting in a lot of work. We got prototypes from China. So I was definitely diverting a significant amount of my free time to that venture. So those were probably my two most prolific, clearly defined side hustles.
Okay, interesting. So to me, those both seem like true side hustles. And this is the issue that I have with the term side hustle.
Yeah, because this issue like comes up all the time now. Everyone seems to have one.
Yeah.
It's in the zeitgeist. What's your issue with it?
I think that we've glorified the second job. I think
we've yassified the second job.
Yassified the second job. And I think that I understand wanting to reframe I need 2+ jobs to live, to exist in my city as like something a little bit more aspirational. I understand wanting to give it a facelift. But like that's the reality is you're saying that people are using the side hustle for discretionary purchases.
Yep.
It's like that to me is saying my 9 to 5 is not covering the life that I like want or need. And therefore I have to go outside. I do think that a lot of these side hustles are like more aspirational, more like a true side hustle to me is like starting a podcast.
Okay.
Or, pursuing your passion that's maybe external from your 9 to 5 that allows an outlet.
Okay, so like say, let's take Rover, for example. Yeah. Is that side hustle or second job in your eyes?
I would say that's second job.
That's second job.
I love dogs, and that has not changed, but I needed money.
So we were just basically saying Gen Z took second job, rebranded it, yassified it to side hustle to seem cooler. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think it's to seem cooler. I think it's to obfuscate the reality a little bit, the dark reality that a 9 to 5 is potentially no longer enough.
Okay.
And I think that it's a little bit easier to swallow when you call it a side hustle. It's like I'm doing something fun on the side. I'm like following my passions.
Whereas a second job, you're like, this is kind of sad because like I have to like do another job. Like F this. Like I want one job.
Yeah.
I don't have to work to make ends meet. Basically.
Yes. I also do think that in my mind, and this could be different than what other people think about this, but in my mind, the difference between a full second job and a side hustle is typically side hustles seem to be a little more entrepreneurial or make your own hours.
Yeah.
It's done in your free time, whereas maybe a second job is, you have like bartending shifts or you waitress on the weekends. That feels a little more second jobby to me. But I have some stats.
Yeah, well, first, I think that's a really good distinction, which is like side hustle, you kind of can turn on and off. You're in control of your schedule. Second job is like every Saturday from 9 to 3, I have a shift.
Yes.
And I do think that's probably a good breakdown to distinguish second job versus side hustle.
Yep.
But I'm very impressed you have some stats because normally you don't have any stats.
Well, there's not numbers associated with them.
There are stats that I invented in my head, and they're just words.
There's stats that I looked up but don't have numbers behind.
Okay.
So the most common types of side hustle.
Okay.
There are 4, and I've categorized them in ways that I think make sense. First is online work. So this is monetizing and scaling knowledge that you have. So this would be like creating a course, doing a blog, monetizing like the information in your brain somehow.
Yes.
Then there's one-on-one knowledge work. So this is not scaled. For example, you write a blog, many, many people can read it. Or you build a course, many people can buy it. One-on-one knowledge work is more like freelancing. It's coaching, it's tutoring. It's still using the information in your brain, but it's not scalable.
Okay.
Then there's physical goods. So this is like selling, your art on Etsy. It's flipping furniture, flipping houses, any of that stuff. And then there's the gig economy work. So that's doing Instacart in your free time,
Rover.
And so I think that those are the 4 like side hustle, classifications.
Yeah.
That don't necessarily feel second jobby.
Gotcha. Well, I see your stat, and I raise you an actual stat that has numbers associated with it, because I like your breakdown. So let me just run through. This is from Bankrate. They did a big survey at the end of 2024 about side hustles in America. I already mentioned people on average make $810 per month from their side hustle. 1/3 of Americans say that they will earn money through a side hustle this year. So 1/3 have active side hustles that they're monetizing. However, that number goes up to 48% for Gen Z. So this point that we're hitting on where it's like, maybe it is just like it's getting harder to live. There's inflation. Things are expensive. People don't feel like they have the same job security from previous generations. So what do they turn to? A side hustle to make more money. 32% of Americans, so that's basically the same 1/3, say they will always need a side hustle. Like they just don't believe that one job is going to provide them the income that they want. What I found really interesting, only 16% of people said that they want their side hustle to turn into their main job. So most people, again, to our point, are doing these side hustles to provide extra income, maybe just for fun, but they're not doing it as a test of something to turn into a full-time role. They view it as separate from kind of their ultimate career ambition. So I think that's a interesting perspective on side hustles in America.
Yeah. I'm also curious to see, like, if we revisit this topic in 5+ years.
Yeah.
If it's Gen Z is doing side hustles because this is something unique to Gen Z, or they're younger in their career, their salaries and, income is going to be lower inherently. Like we're boomers out here with a second job. We're boomers out here trying to like supplement their income when they were straight out of college.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And maybe boomers, when they were in college, we didn't have Rover. Like maybe it's easier to plug into gig work, to Upwork, to like monetize your skills because of the internet in a way that maybe was just a lot harder in the past.
Yeah. I think that this is interesting also, is the idea that I've always understood a side hustle to main hustle.
Yes, that's what I thought too. So
Like,
that was surprising to me.
You're de-risking a career pivot, basically. Or you're following your passions and you're testing to see if there's any income available there. So it's interesting it's only 16%.
Yeah, I want to talk about the side hustle to main job pipeline. But first, why are we talking about this episode or this topic on Per My Last Email? I think it's because like there is a really unique feeling when you work at a company, your 9 to 5, and yourself or people around you have a side hustle.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's cool. And you're like, oh, this person sells shoes online. That's kind of fun. Sometimes you're like, that sounds just like what you do at your 9 to 5. And like, are you even doing your 9 to 5? And there's a tension that it creates. And there's a whole spectrum of feelings from those two ends.
Yeah.
I think we've both experienced a variety of those throughout our career. So like, I want to pin down like what is appropriate in your mind and what isn't when it comes to side hustles.
Do you want me to just like say whatever?
Go.
Okay, so I think when we're talking about the 4 different classifications that I came up with, online work and knowledge work are the ones that are the most dangerous. So when you're thinking about like, it's actually kind of, it's a bigger topic, I think, but it's like when you're doing knowledge work, it's like you're coming up with ideas out of your brain. You're not like making a physical thing.
Yeah.
So if you're coming up with ideas out of your brain from 9 to 5, and then at 5:01 you have an idea and it could be used at your job, but you use it at home instead. It's like, what does the company quote unquote own?
Yeah.
And so I think that that's kind of interesting, and that's a gray area. And I think that because it's not defined, unless it's specifically defined by your company, this is what is and isn't allowed as an employee here, which is what we do at Morning Brew. But I think other people can perceive it differently, and they can say, I think what I'm doing is completely above board, but my coworker disagrees.
Yeah, and that's where I think a lot of tension can be found. I mean, so for example, we worked with someone very briefly that like 100% had 2 full-time jobs.
Which I think is also different.
I mean, yes, it's very different.
That's
also,
like simultaneously, that's like fraud.
Flex, yeah. Like they would miss meetings. Like it was absurd. We're like, you have 2 full-time jobs. So that is obviously wrong. Right. I think it's tough because
it's wrong if you're not getting things done. Like, I don't think this person did a goddamn thing for 3 months before they left.
Yeah. That is what I think when it comes to side hustles. If in your 9 to 5, like you're excellent and you're showing up and you're doing what needs to be done, I think people have a lot of leniency for you if you're like kind of in the gray zone when it comes to side hustles. The second your team starts thinking that you're prioritizing the side hustle over your full-time job, and they maybe expect more out of that full-time job, or they're more committed, that's where can be a ton of tension. So I think it's a fraught situation when you start getting close to those boundary lines.
I 100% agree.
Should we do a little Gucci or nah? Is this good?
Gucci or nah is horrible.
Should we do a little is this good or not in terms of side hustles.
Is this is this acceptable in the workplace or not?
Yes.
I like that.
Okay. Hit me with one.
Oh, okay. I'll go first.
Yeah.
A sports reporter.
Yep.
Coaches Little League.
Oh, totally Gucci.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing.
Well, they're gonna get a leak from their 5th grade huddle. Like, okay,
who knows?
Found out Tommy has a tummy ache, and I wouldn't have known that before. Like,
okay,
perfect.
So seems like it's all good.
Gucci, yes. Okay, you work for a media company, and on the side you consult for other media companies.
Ooh, that's tough. I think it depends on the rules that your company has and what they view as crossing the line.
Okay.
I think that you can do it appropriately as long as it's truly outside of your 9 to 5. But if it's like, you work at Vox and you're telling Vice how to grow based on the Vox playbook, that seems iffy. I wouldn't want to do that.
That gets really challenging. I mean, again, I think there's like legally what's allowed, and your contract might stipulate what you can or can't do with intellectual property that is like even related to your company. And then there's like the vibes you're going to give off by doing that to your team. And like, if you don't care about that and it's legal, like go for it. I just do think that some people are going to be like, okay, what the hell? Like,
it might make your 9 to 5 harder because you have to then fight against the perception that you're not doing your job.
Yeah, it's like the whole saying about like the Supreme Court. It's like it's the cronyism doesn't, or the perception like matters more than the actual like conflicts of interest. If there is a perception of conflict of interest, that is a problem in and of itself, whether the conflict exists or not.
And we'll be right back after this. Okay, back to the show. Okay, I have another one.
Okay.
A CEO of a company is on the board of a smaller company in a different industry.
That's Gucci.
Gucci.
That's Gucci.
And I would like to say, I saw this on LinkedIn, and we talked about this in the past, but I think that people like to glorify sitting on boards and doing things outside of your job as like a CEO or an executive. It's exactly the same thing that the lower rung, employees are doing. And I think it's especially bad if a CEO is saying you can't have side hustles and then you're sitting on the board at 4 different companies.
Yeah. Well, this is what I'm saying. It's like almost like we've like infantilized the side hustle, where it's like, oh, a side hustle, like that's for like Gen Z, or like, I sit on boards.
Right.
This is an elevated thing.
Right.
Like that's not a side hustle.
Yeah.
It's like
it's exactly the same thing, dude.
That's a side hustle. And so, it's clear that some people maybe have different rules for themselves than others. And so, but I do think like totally Gucci, like you're on a board, that's great. As long as it doesn't conflict with your 9 to 5, that's cool. Particularly because it's a different industry. If it's a similar industry, that's again kind of the same question as the consulting, where it might get a little iffy.
Is the perception greater than the actual outcome?
That being said, if anyone needs a board member, hit me up. I'll do it.
I'll sit on a board.
Okay. You have a side hustle. This is for you, where you sell shoes online, but your job is financial analyst at Goldman.
Totally fine.
Totally fine.
Yeah. Again, I think it's if the perception is that it is your 5 to 9 or whatever, and it's not interfering with your ability to do your job, I think that's great. When I think it's a problem is if you're making marketing videos about selling shoes that involve you like in the Goldman bathroom or something. And it's like, okay, now it's clear that you're doing work during company hours.
Yeah, our recommendation too is to never film any marketing videos inside of a bathroom.
I agree.
Yeah, that's not going to hit. Okay, I have another one for you.
Okay.
Wait, you have one for me?
I'm tapped out.
Okay, I got one for you.
Okay.
You work at a startup. There's like not a lot of people. There's 5 people at this startup, and you're kind of the idea of a startup is you're all in. Like this either dies, like default dead, we all need to go to make this happen. And the CEO who's like started the damn thing is like has something outside of the startup that's like they're spending a lot of time on. Gucci or nah. It's outside of 9 to 5, but it's like weren't we all in here?
Bad.
But okay, say more.
I've had a somewhat similar situation. It's not been exactly the same. But I think it's really, really hypocritical to ask of your employees to do something that you are clearly not doing.
I'm snapping for those that can't see.
I think that if the expectation and your management style is, in order for this company to succeed, we have to be all in, and it's not a 9 to 5. And that's kind of like the exciting thing about it is you're putting everything into this startup.
Yep.
And then your boss is like, this is my 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't aware that this was a 9 to 5. Like, why have I been working 14-hour days for the last 3 years? You know?
Yeah.
And so I think that's really, really harmful. Again, probably with the right expectation setting and the right understanding, you can make it work.
Yeah.
But it feels very hypocritical to ask your employees to go all in, and then you clearly have a backup plan.
Yeah, and I totally agree, and I think this is advice for you is like thinking about the stage of company that you're in and how a side hustle might be perceived. Like, I would be pissed if I was at a startup and like someone was like, this is just my 9 to 5. Okay, like we just didn't clearly articulate the expectations then because that's not going to work. If you work at a large company, already has product market fit, makes billions of dollars of revenue, and the job is like keep the lights on 9 to 5, totally, it's a different environment, different expectations. But I love your point. Like, what you expect out of your employees or your team, you should be having the same thing. So if you're leading a team and you're making them work after hours, but you're after hours not working, doing something else, I think that's very hypocritical and ultimately will damage morale. And I think that's where the side hustle question gets really challenging, and people need to be very thoughtful about it. It's this perception.
Yeah.
And it can easily create a lot of weird dynamics on teams that ultimately are destructive.
So let's change gears a little bit and talk about pros and cons.
Yes.
Generally, we've kind of touched on them, but just to outline them. For me, and I'm curious to hear you react to these, the pros are money. First of all, you're making money.
I will go on record. Love money. Yep.
It's an opportunity to de-risk a pivot or try new things, test things out while still having a full-time job, still having benefits. You're potentially getting new skills if you're approaching it correctly. And it can be fun. It can be a nice break from your full-time job. It can be a nice way to explore creativity, to try something new, to explore your passion.
Yep.
What do you think?
Well, I'll add to that last one. In some cases, I think a side hustle can actually enhance your full-time job, particularly if the side hustle is outside of the scope of your normal work or in a different industry altogether, because I do think, innovation comes from taking ideas from one industry and applying them to another, taking ideas from one domain, applying them to another. A side hustle gives you a larger aperture in which to experience different things. And then if you're still taking your job seriously, which I hope you are, you're taking those lessons and you're applying them in unique ways beneficial to the company. So I think it's great when employees have a lot of different hobbies and interests and are exploring those, because ultimately it makes them happier, but also it makes the company better. So I think you're spot on for the pros. I would say the de-risk thing is interesting. I do think it's a great way to de-risk figuring out if you want to do something. I think the question you have to ask yourself is like, what do I want to get out of this stage of my career? If you are in a position at your company where like maybe you have some equity or like there's incentives for like going above and beyond, you really like the company, you want to grow in your career, you trust your manager, it feels like there's upward mobility at your job, I think a side hustle might be a distraction because it seems like you have this really good lane here. And sometimes we going all in, burning the boats, only having one focus is really, really beneficial. So I would never personally be like, we'll always have a side hustle, because there might be a situation where that actually, you just do two things okay instead of one thing great. If you're at a job where you're like, it's just a job to me. Like, I like what I do, but I'm not going to make it my whole personality. I like my team. I show up. I do my work well. I'm collegial, but that's it. And I really am excited about this other thing, but I'm not ready to just like quit my job. And then, of course, I think a side hustle is really appropriate. Just make sure that you're at a company where the other people aren't expecting you to be all in, because that's where I think tensions flare up.
That's a great segue into cons.
Let's talk cons.
So cons is that can be stressful to have a
Yeah.
to have a side hustle.
Yes, burnout like increases as you have a side hustle. You have now more stress on you.
I also think again the present value of your
Kayla,
time.
I studied philosophy.
I'm sorry.
I don't. You're talking about cash discounting.
No, this is exactly what you're saying. Also, is that sometimes when you try to monetize something at the expense of something else, like you're signing off at 5 and then spending 4 hours walking dogs or whatever. That can prevent you from accelerating in your career faster, getting a promotion, going above and beyond. I'm not saying that's like right, but that might be a trade-off there.
Yeah.
I also think that there's something to be said about the millennial desire to monetize leisure.
Yeah.
I think
Perfectly said.
I think that it's like, I've been really interested in cooking recently. Oh, you should sell that.
Yeah.
How do you
write your recipes down?
Write your recipes, write a book.
You should make a podcast about the recipes you cook.
Right. Or like, I'm like really liking paint by numbers. You should sell them. You should create a paint by numbers business.
LLC.
Like, why can't I just do paint by numbers while I watch TV?
Yeah.
And so I think that if the urge is like, I want to do something interesting and fun with my free time, but the only way that I can justify it is by monetizing it, I'd urge you to double click on that.
Yeah,
using the most disgusting jargon ever.
There might be a deeper thing you want to think about in that case.
Test it first. I understand that you want to, become a photographer. There's a lot of like initial startup costs there. So it might make you feel better if you are like, I'm going to do wedding photography on the weekends.
Yeah.
Why don't you buy a freaking Polaroid or use your iPhone?
Yeah.
Figure out ways to like explore this thing without feeling like you need to monetize it to make it justifiable for your free time.
Well, just on that con, I do think you could be in a situation, we heard the stats earlier, most people are doing this for discretionary income. They want extra income to make ends meet. And that typically happens when you're early in your career because you're making less money on average. I think being okay with like giving up your side hustle when it's no longer serving what you intended it to serve, which is if you grow in your career and now you're making more money, maybe it's time to stop. Like we were looking at Reddit threads.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to stop doing the wedding bartending because you don't actually need the extra money anymore. And you could divert that to like riding your bike, spending more time with family, hanging out with friends. I do think it's quite easy to get addicted to like, this is what I do and I need the money. And you like lose sight of why you originally started it and how those situations might change. So yeah, if you're doing something for money, do it as long as you need the money. But once you don't, maybe reevaluate.
Yeah, I like that. And the Reddit thread that Kyle's referring to was basically this like husband and wife team would bartend at weddings on the weekends and make about $10K a year. And they started that when their joint income was $100,000 together. It was like 8 years later, their joint income was $250,000 and they were still making about $10,000 for 20 weekends of weddings. And basically like this thread was asking, should we give it up? And everyone was like, if you don't enjoy it, yes. Like you're spending 20 weekends. It's every other weekend.
Yeah.
Probably most of them in the summer. Every other weekend, giving up your Saturday night for $500 when you're making, that's 4% of your salary. It's like, if you don't enjoy it, there's no need. You should value your time more than that.
Yep.
So I think I like that tip.
I'll add, I am pro side hustle overall with all the caveats that we talked about. I think that one of the biggest benefits of a side hustle, and I'm really thinking about like a way to prove that you can do something. Like we had an episode on career pivots. I think a side hustle, as we've talked about, is one of the best ways to like start to pivot your career if you want to. Like if you work in sales, but you want to work in finance, you're not just gonna be able to make that leap. Like you might have a side hustle where you start analyzing stock quarterly earnings or something and demonstrate your financial acumen in public. That way, when you need to make the leap, you can. I think that's a really, really effective way to go about creating the conditions to make a pivot in a de-risked way. And I was talking to Siri, who works at Morning Brew, and she told me this quote she heard that I loved, which was, job security is not your ability to keep your current job. It's your ability to get another job if you lose your current one. And I think a side hustle is that security blanket sometimes. Like, even if I lost my current job, I know I got something cooking over here. I got some special sauce here. I'm easily being able to get another job. And I think that is a comforting thing for people and an economically viable option. So side hustles, when done appropriately, I think are a really, really good thing. But there are some situations where you should go all in.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Any last thoughts on side hustles?
I think we should start a side hustle, Kayla. If we had to start a side hustle, what would it be?
A second podcast called Per My First Email. You heard it here.
Yes, a direct competitor to our podcast. Well, maybe we have a new podcast launching then.
Yeah,
that could be fun.
Sounds great.
In the meantime, stay subscribed to this one.
Please.
And let us know your thoughts on side hustles per my last email at morningbrew.com. We'd love to hear about your side hustle, your thoughts, any discount codes you might have for us for your side hustle. Send them our way. Should we roll the credits?
Let's do it.
Our producer is Michaela Heck.
Our technical director is Yuchana Ogu.
Lucy Brewster is a Brew Markets writer.
And our chief content officer is Devin Emery.
And I shouldn't forget that Raymond Liu filled in as a producer as well on this episode. We love Ray. Have a good day, everyone.